Why haven't you checked the children?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
The power of Christ compels you!
What's your favorite scary movie?
Here's my boomstick!
Oh!
How's that for a slice of fried gold?
Yeah, boy!
That's good. That's brilliant. Very good.
Enjoying that last clip there, Alan.
I quite enjoyed the first clip. I think that was from the original When a Stranger Calls.
Oh, really? I think that's the only clip I didn't immediately know.
Yeah, I believe it's from that, which is not a very good film by any stretch of the imagination, but the first, 20 minutes or so are fantastic.
I really like that spooky theme sent in to us by the only theme meister, Tomo Fallows, setting the tone for this year's annual Halloween spooktacular special
Halloween
podcast of horror, whatever we... This is this year's official Halloween special. We've done 3 or 4 horror films in a row at this point. But this is the canon Halloween special 2018. All right.
Oh wait, who are we? I'm Calvin. Who are you two?
Who are you? You're not even on this show anymore.
I know.
It's the ghost of Calvin Dyson. Ooh.
No. I'm Calvin Dyson. Your soul.
I'm the ghost of Calvin. Oh.
Hello, no, I'm Sol.
And I'm Alan.
As ever. Are you?
As ever.
Yeah.
So what are we doing then?
Well, yeah, we're doing Re-Animator. I don't know why.
There's not a new one out, is there?
No.
Horror.
We just kind of... I don't know, we wanted... I think our Halloween episodes are kind of... As in our proper Halloween specials. I think we've sort of ended up doing a classic from the archive horror film with no real prospects of a sequel. It's kind of a weird fluke that we did the original Halloween the first time and then they ended up making a sequel out of the blue. I don't think people were really expecting that. We were looking at all the big franchise horror films. You've got, all the other big slasher films, but we didn't want to get too bogged down with those, seeing as we would have just done the Halloween episode a few weeks ago, still available on dimreturns.com. And we thought about maybe the George Romero Dead films that certainly I want to do at some point, but then I feel like they're going to need more than one episode to really cover. So I don't know. It just kind of came up, and I think Alan was on board with it. I think that's basically what happened.
That's pretty much our decision-making process.
So yeah, Re-Animator. I think I was keen to do some sort of zombie film because I feel like they've been a bit neglected on this show. We've only done Resident Evil, and I feel like we did another one. Evil Dead if they count.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask you. In your as a zombie,
count as zombies.
As a zombie canon expert, what's your definition of what classes as a zombie?
I have quite a broad definition. I know a lot of people will say it's a reanimated corpse, but...
So, for example, 28 Days Later wouldn't count with that because they're just infected with a virus, aren't they?
Yeah, but I would...
Or does the virus kill them and then they come back to life?
Not in 28 Days Later, they're still alive.
But do they count as zombies then?
I'd say so, but... Like I say, a lot of people would say it just means reanimated corpse, but that is that's something of a modern bastardization of the word that's come about from its use to refer to reanimated corpses in pop culture as a result of Night of the Living Dead. I think really the word originally just kind of meant being, well, kind of like a being without cognitive faculty over their body, without awareness of what they were doing, but animated and out and about doing stuff. So, I think it's very broad because I think 28 Days Later absolutely is a zombie film. The quote-unquote zombies, the infected in it, are absolutely acting without their full mental ability. They're clearly out of character and not quite thinking straight because they starve to death eventually, regardless, it hits all the other tropes and cliches of the genre.
You know, All of Me,
No.
which is a film where Steve Martin is inhabited by the consciousness of Lily Tomlin, and she takes over his body.
Is that what that's called? I have seen that. Isn't that called The Man with Two Brains?
That's a similar but different Steve Martin film.
Wait, he's done more than one film about a guy with a woman's consciousness going into his head.
He does a lot of things where he's like doing his physical comedies, isn't he? So he's like got two people in one body.
All right. No, I don't think that counts because I don't know. I think possession isn't. If someone's like acting in a thoughtful capacity, I don't think it really quite counts. But I think, like I say, it's a very broad definition. I don't think I'm very open to including practically anything with a living dead or people that are just kind of going to attack you.
I was going to ask, actually, because it's funny that we started talking about classifying it as a zombie film, because rewatching it, I've seen it a few times before, but I've never really considered it a zombie film. Much like I've just... I don't know, I guess because it is sort of an updating of Frankenstein, which I know is a zombie tale, but I just think of it along those lines.
It was very specifically written. This is the H.P. Lovecraft short that it was based on, was very specifically written as a parody of Frankenstein. It was written to basically take Frankenstein and put a load of gore in it and just make it into pulpy trash. I don't know if H.P. Lovecraft was sort of trying to critique Frankenstein and he had it out for Mary Shelley and didn't appreciate her writing. I don't really know what he was trying to achieve with it. But...
Well, you are probably... I don't know, Alan, have you read any H.P. Lovecraft? I know that Saul is quite
I'm not an expert, no. Saul's the man to ask here.
Have you read the original Re-Animator story?
Yes, I have.
Ah. And is it anything like the movie that we're going to be talking about today?
It sort of is, yeah. It's a lot closer than you'd imagine. I saw the films before I read it. I think these films were my first ever real exposure to Lovecraft. And I didn't really know who he was. I think everyone was making a big thing out of it being H.P. Lovecraft's Re-Animator and things like that. And I just thought, who the hell's this guy? And I didn't really pay any attention until years and years later. I think it might be that South Park episode when Cthulhu showed up that was the first time I really kind of thought, hang on, who is this guy?
That's the thing that you go, I need to know more about this.
Well, yeah, I need to understand what joke I'm missing out on here. I wasn't missing out on any jokes by not knowing the guy who wrote the thing Re-Animator's based on. And anyway, I realised, it's, that's where the Necronomicon and Evil Dead's come from, and that's where this and that and blah blah blah's come from. And I started reading some of it, and I really do love his writing style. I think it's wonderful. He's very grandiose and big words for the sake of it, and it's all about the descriptions, but the way it's put together is just fantastic. And so I've not read a huge amount of his work, but I've read a fair few. I don't think he ever wrote a full-length book. I think they were always short stories. I think the closest he ever came to a novella even was At the Mountains of Madness, is it called? Which is something Guillermo del Toro was trying to get off the ground as a film for years and years and years. I think he's finally given up on it, sadly. Yeah, I read Re-Animator purely because I've got a big H.P. Lovecraft anthology with basically everything he ever wrote in it, almost. And I'm just working through it very slowly. It just so happens that Herbert Lovecraft Re-Animator is the short's called, I think.
Herbert Lovecraft? I don't think that's what it's called.
Shit. Herbert West Re-Animator, sorry. Just so happens it's quite near the front, so it was one of the first ones I read. And it is surprisingly similar, because I thought, having seen the films and them being so comedic, and having read all these other Lovecraft shorts leading up to it, the vast majority of which are very, I stumbled upon an old temple and it was full of spooky things that suggested these big gods used to exist, and then I ran away scared. It's very out of character for his writing to not be big and existential. And I just kind of assumed, they made it into a comedy and, added all these jokes. It's actually a lot closer than I thought. It's a pretty damn faithful adaptation of his writings. It's obviously been modernized and updated, and there is more humor to the film. The short isn't really massively humorous other than being a bit over the top with its violence and stuff. Essentially, Re-Animator is the first 3 chapters, I think, of a 6-chapter serial. I think it was published in issues of a magazine each month. It was one of these things where, like a lot of older books and things were just written month to month in magazines.
Yeah, I think Charles Dickens wrote things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, they all did back then. Because there wasn't exactly a big market for novels.
Yeah. So I think it's just the first 3 chapters, if I recall, are pretty much the film.
That's interesting what you say about the tone of it, because I found the film, particularly the first one, quite difficult to pin down in terms of its tone, because it obviously was funny, but it was felt like it was playing it straight, but so straight that it was funny and it knew it was. It was quite an odd one to pin down. And that makes sense if the source material is quite over the top deliberately, and they're kind of making it in a kind of, we know we can't take this too seriously kind of way. It is an odd tone to it. It works.
I agree with you. It's a really odd tightrope walk, I think, that the film walks
balance
tonally
is the word I used.
Yeah, and like you say, it does work, but I can't quite figure out how it works, because it almost shouldn't. But yeah, no, I cards on the table, straight up. I love this film. It's great. So that's me.
My cards on the table are the same. I absolutely love this film. But just to your point about tone and how they did a really good job, like, walking that tightrope. And I do wonder if, like, going to the behind the scenes material and stuff, Stuart Gordon was originally a theatre director.
Oh, really?
And him and a bunch of people, like, would run this small theatre, and they got talking to some people, so, oh, you guys should make a movie. And they were like, oh, okay, well, we've got this, let's do H.P. Lovecraft, because I think someone was a fan. Anyway, they were recommended that they make a horror movie. They wanted to do it as a series originally. They wanted to do a 6-part sort of PBS, American network series, but no one was buying it, so they changed it into a movie. And judging from all the behind-the-scenes stuff, they basically did rehearsals like what you do for a play, but for the film. So it wasn't just a case of turning up on set every day, oh, how are we going to do this, it was all incredibly well prepared. And I think that went a long way to helping maintain the tone and consistency all the way through, that everyone knew kind of what movie they were on before it had even started filming. Because I think if you were an actor showing up at the set, day one on the set, it might take a bit of time to get used to exactly how broad do I play this. Because I think everyone, even some of the more wooden characters, which I think we'll get into, they play it just the right amount of straight.
What is the right amount of straight, Calvin?
Oh, I wouldn't know. No, it's Bruce Abbott. Bruce Abbott is just the right amount of straight. Jeffrey Combs is the opposite? I don't know.
General overview, I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to say it was the best thing ever, but I kind of enjoy it as a product of its time. It's silly, but it gets away with it. I liked it.
Do you know, guys?
But it's not blowing me away or anything.
If you look this film up on Rotten Tomatoes at the minute, then the 5th review down on the left-hand side I wrote.
What?
Oh, really? When did you write it?
June. Or it was published in June.
Should we go and have a look, or is it just going to be what you're talking about now?
Just thought I'd mention it. I'm just having a look.
Oh, no. Congratulations. Well, Saul, I don't know if you remember this, but you recommended this film to me ages ago at university.
Did I not make you sit down and watch? Was it not like let's watch Re-Animator? I don't remember, but I... No.
I remember watching it by myself and then telling you how much I loved it. At least I think I did, because I do love Frankenstein stories. And I'm just thinking again then about the differences between a Frankenstein story and a zombie story. Because I think generally in a zombie movie,
Frankenstein's a kind of zombie.
I'm a zombie.
What's that hanging down between your legs?
It's a flex off a mini cattle. It's supposed to be a tail.
Zombies don't have tails.
All right, it's inconsistent. Zombies, by their very nature, are inconsistent. They're a mishmash of different bits.
No, that's Frankenstein.
Right. You've made 2 glaring errors. Error 1, right, Frankenstein is the name of the creator, not the monster. Right, error 2, right, Frankenstein is a zombie, right, he's a type of zombie. It's like people who say tannoy when they mean public address system. Tannoy is a brand name.
By definition, it is a zombie film.
Oh, yeah. I
but,
mean, it's arguably, more of a zombie film than a lot of films that are considered zombie films. But I know what you're getting at. I think when you think zombie film, you think apocalyptic, sort of plague
Lots of
spreading,
zombies.
viral contagion.
Well, I think the difference is that often in those kinds of movies, the zombie outbreak is either like as a result of an evil, experiment gone wrong or an accident or something like this. But the difference is that in Re-Animator and Frankenstein, you have people who want to create life, and that's the difference. They're not looking to infest the world with terrible creatures or anything.
I've definitely seen films where people are looking actively to create zombies and then it goes wrong. I think it's just because you're dealing with one or two zombies at a time, and when they come back, they can't create more zombies. They can't turn you into a zombie. And the reason I think this kind of does comfortably come under the zombie banner is because at the end, in the third act, you have a shitload of zombies compared to the amount of people in the film overall, and you do get that kind of zombie mayhem. But were it not for that third act, I don't know. I think maybe I would struggle to think of it as a zombie film as well. I don't know.
Should we recap the plot a bit for the sake of people who haven't seen this movie, just very briefly?
Okay, so
because there's not much to it, really.
Yeah, I mean, it really is kind of just Frankenstein. It's this scientist who's kind of a maligned figure within medicine. He's infamous, well known for his crazy experiments on trying to cure death, which he believes to be not a permanent state. And essentially, he's figured out how to do it, but he hasn't figured out how to do it in a way whereby the person doesn't come back as a violent maniac trying to attack and kill anyone in their path. I think they verbalize it as you can't bring the soul back or something nonsense like that. I don't know. I mean, that's essentially it. He just kind of continues his experiments, and we're given two young and attractive people to kind of latch onto, because God forbid we'd not be given a protagonist.
I was about to say, Saul, you positioned that plot summary as if Jeffrey Combs's Herbert West character is the main character, but he is really a supporting player. And interestingly, the director talked about, because apparently this movie was like 2.5 hours, 3 hours long in its first cut, and it really found its feet in the editing room when they realised, actually, this guy and the older, he's not the Dean, but the David Gale character, Dr.
Hill?
Dr. Hill, that they were so...
Propane and propane accessories. I'm a doctor in propane.
That they were so interesting and engaging that the movie was sort of recut to make them more prominent, because there was originally a lot more stuff of Bruce Abbott and Barbara Crampton's character, who are just your very bland love interest.
Yeah, very boring. And weirdly, the story revolves around they're two, adults, they're in their 20s, and yet the whole world seems extremely concerned with whether they're sleeping together, how seriously they're taking it.
It's very high school, isn't it?
It's weird. I mean, it was the 80s, but it's not the 70s. I mean, come on.
Height of the AIDS panic, promiscuity wasn't cool anymore.
And her dad is the Dean. I know.
Ultimately, they're just there to set up old Herbert West.
Yes.
Jeffrey Combs in his career-defining role.
Yes.
Don't you think it's odd? Jeffrey Combs, he seems like one of those people who should turn up more just on, an episode of West Wing or something like that.
He does that's where he seems to pop up, is American TV dramas, just
but not that
randomly.
much. He does a lot of low-budget crap.
That's it. He strikes me like he ought to turn up in B-movie horror films that are like, who can we afford, who's a horror legend, that the same sorts of stuff that Tony Todd always pops up in, or Jason Mewes occasionally when he's looking for a paycheck, that kind of low-end schlocky film that kind of, and it's weird, he seems to be doing the American TV drama circuit just as a jobbing actor, and it's a real shame, because he's not a one-trick pony by any stretch of the imagination. If you've seen The Frighteners, he's by far and away the best thing in it.
You just don't get it, do you, Frank? This is all about your pathetic need for self-glorification. You are such an asshole.
Yes, I am. I'm an asshole.
With the new thing.
Again, a fantastic performance, not the same as Herbert West, really. Completely going for it, and so he's a very capable comic performer.
Like it's not like he's the most amazing actor or anything, but yeah, he should. I feel like he's not exactly on the same level as like Robert Englund, is it? It's like he's better than that. But,
he's a hell of a lot better than that.
Does he do the old convention circuit? Is he living off that?
Well, this is it. I don't know.
I would imagine.
I'm sure he could make a decent living off it if he wanted to. I don't know if he does.
I almost get the impression that I don't know, he doesn't seem to milk it like he might, the franchise. But then at the same time, I'm sure if they let him do a fourth one tomorrow, he'd sign right up. So I don't know. It's difficult to figure out. But no, I do think... I think he makes this film. I think he is fantastic. He's got a real presence to himself. Like, he really sells this character, and a lot of the deliveries are things that wouldn't be funny if he didn't deliver it in a very specific way that makes it just fantastic.
You weren't home, so I put it in there. I certainly didn't think you'd want to find it like that. I did not want to stink the place up. I was going to show you.
You couldn't call or write a note.
I was busy pushing bodies around, as you well know. I know what a note say, Dan. Cat dead, details later.
Everything's straight, isn't it? Everything's dead.
Yeah.
He never cracks a joke. It's all played completely straight. I mean, that makes it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he is fantastic, and I love the darkness that they can give that character because he isn't the protagonist. I don't think they would have had the balls to do it if he was. But because you do never know if he killed that cat or not. It's heavily implied that he did. I like that they're willing to let stuff like that linger, and yeah.
But I think the reason over the whole three films, he never quite comes across as evil. Like, he takes advantage of the situation, but he's never. And if he, even at the points when he's occasionally kills people, they're always like really nasty people. And he's very selfish. He acts in his kind of an immediate sense. Make sure he gets away. But he believes in his work as well. He believes that he's trying to do something that's for the greater good.
Yeah, he's trying to cure death. It's arguably the greatest medical breakthrough in the history of medicine. He's trying to do a great thing for humanity, and you get the sense that he's a bit obsessed with his work, and he'll lose sight of the...
A bit?
Well, you get the impression that he's completely lost sight of anything close to ethics because of the bigger pictures in front of him, and I think that's very understandable. Not that I condone his actions, yeah.
Oh no, but this was going to be my question. Like, why is he even doing it? Because yes, he wants to have this big medical breakthrough. I never get the sense of him as someone who wants it for fame and glory and to be written about in textbooks forever. I think a lesser screenplay would have had, like, what's the name from Deep Blue Sea? Why does she want to cure Alzheimer's? Oh, because my dad died of it. Blah blah blah. We never get that from him either.
The good thing about the script, the first film, is that Dr. Hill fills that role. And Dr. Hill is the arsehole.
All the propane I can buy.
So he falls in the middle. He's neither villain nor hero. He's the kooky scientist guy. And that's why it works, I think, because they've created a character to take that on so he doesn't have to.
Yeah, but that still doesn't answer what his motivation is. I don't know if it's entirely necessary, but...
I think his motivation is curiosity. I get the impression that the way it's played, it's meant to be that he'll justify it as being for the greater good and so on. But I think it really comes down to, holy shit, can you believe I can do this? What about if this happens?
Definitely.
And I think that's very believable as a motivator.
Because he comes across as very sociopathic as well. Like, he never has any. He only ever sees these bodies as things. It's not a person, and that's counterpointed by the other, whoever the other person is with him in the different films, being incredibly overly emotional and ridiculous. So he's definitely sociopathic in that sense. just quite unemotional. So I don't think he particularly wants to save the world or save humanity. It is just like, I can have this power, I can create this thing, and that's what I'm going to do.
Because the only human, well, actually, only the being in any of the films that he seems to sort of even remotely care about is the Bruce Abbott character, Dan, who's your sort of star protagonist, I guess. He's the only one who, and I'm not quite sure why he sort of attaches onto him, if it's just that he thinks he needs an assistant, so this guy will do, or what if he's got a crush on him, like what exactly the motivation is behind having this guy as his assistant.
I think it's pure, again, like Alan said, I think he's painted as a psychopath, sociopath. I think he's painted as someone who's extremely manipulative and opportunistic as well, and will just kind of jump on any chance that comes his way. And this young guy offers up a great deal of, opportunity for him to further his work. And basically, the guy goes down into the basement. The cats come back to life. That's the point at which
that's a great scene.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's fantastic. The way it's shot and staged and lit.
Get out of here!
One of many scenes of an actor with a puppet in their hands just playing about. You get a lot of that.
It is great. It's just, again, it's just the bit where they just think, fuck it, and just throw the cat against the wall, and there's just a bit of brain just left lingering.
Yeah, because obviously the cat has been injected with this thing, which means it can't die, or it is dead but animate. So in order to stop it, they have to snap its back.
And it's this really ropey Salem Saberhagen puppet as well. It really looks ridiculous. But yeah, basically that's the point at which the guy is made to see, he can bring the dead back to life, therefore I'm on board with this research. And then at that point it just becomes this big thing of trying to do the research. Dr. Hill tries to blackmail and steal the research, and so Herbert West kills him. And even
that, the Dr. Hill, we get whenever he's filmed, it is like a 1930s Universal horror film. It's like this the shaft of light on his eyes, very close up and menacing, and then they use that because he starts hypnotizing people.
Oh. Look out!
It's really interesting that you picked up on that, because I never considered it until I watched some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, and a lot of the material that was cut did have him sort of actually hypnotising people. He hypnotised the Dean at one point, and most of that ended up on the cutting room floor, except for the bit where he's convincing West to stand back. I think they're in the basement or something. Just before West bludgeons him with a shovel.
The version I watched the other day had him hypnotising the Dean. So I watched an extended version by accident.
You saw the integral cut, which, or at least you might have done, because there are two cuts on my Blu-ray set. One of them is the 85-minute long theatrical, unrated, unedited cut, which was released to cinemas. But when this went to television, they needed to cut out all the gore. But if you cut out all the gore, you lose half an hour's worth of footage. So they added in a load more scenes, and then another person, I think just a fan, found that version and the gory version and then sort of edited them together.
I have heard Stuart Gordon saying that he prefers the trimmed down, toned down cut. I think it's that old thing of, having to be more creative with more restrictions put on you, and I think he felt the plot was better served and things like that. But at the same time, I think the original bloodier version of the film sort of became the standard version. But now this integral cut exists, which is basically everything from both cuts smushed together, the gorier versions of scenes in each instance where there's a choice between two different takes. And then all the deleted stuff just put back in, so it's a lot longer. And I think that's sort of poised now to become the standard version of this film, which...
Well, I think that must be what I saw, because there was definitely plenty of gore in it, and I did see these hypnosis scenes, which I will say, But I will say that the hypnosis thing doesn't really work. Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't quite fit in with the scientific nature of the feel behind the film. It feels very like science. So, crucially, Dr. Hill, the bad guy, at one point is decapitated.
Whoa!
So that's the end of him, and he's not in the rest of the film. Unless he is reanimated, and he's both his head and body are alive, and acting, well, kind of autonomously, but the head seems to be able to tell what the body to do.
So Dr. West murders him because he's being blackmailed, but then sees the opportunity he can't turn up for another experiment. I think there's also a sense of, if he's not dead, I can't get in trouble for it. There's some element of that at play. But then he's got to kind of keep him from, being a nuisance beyond that. What's the line? Again, he has an amazing line with him. The guy's saying he's going to tell on him or something, and he says, like, who's going to believe a talking head in a jar? Or whatever it is. Get a job in a sideshow.
Yes.
But yeah, essentially it's set up for a series of fantastic physical visual comedy with a headless body bumbling around with the head.
I have to say, this is something that the films all the way through do very well in terms of creating the illusion of a body part or a head or whatever being a separate, because it's a lot of close-ups of David Gale's head, and it's like just cut off at the neck, but they're just the way it's edited and the production design around it and lots of blood and stuff really sells it well. Plus the performance is really good.
You can always see how they're doing it, but it works.
But there's times where you go, he must be at a very odd angle to be getting his body out of the way there, but they make it look natural, and that's throughout the whole thing. It's handled very well.
I mean, it's a point at which the film, really loses any sense of reality, because he can talk to the body, which can hear him, even though it hasn't got ears. So it is cartoon logic.
Yeah.
But
plus, he can then also kind of call on other zombies from around the local area.
Yeah.
So he seems to put out a radio signal or something from his head.
I think that was sort of to do with his hypnosis powers or something. But it was sort of, never fully explored.
But I think it's done really well, and I think it plays really well. What you end up with is a villain who's, like, he's really funny. There's some fantastic jokes. The scene at which he sneaks into the morgue and he has a sort of fake educational head sculpture thing like on the top of his neck is fantastic. There's some really great physical humor with it, but then
it's kind of weirdly not played for laughs. That like, he's literally a body with no head, with a fake head stuck on it, with like a surgical mask to cover it.
Oh, I didn't
and you
know.
got like
there's a real wait for the audience laughter moment with that.
I know, but it's the way. It's because it doesn't have the moment where the security guard kind of goes, "Oh, hello, Dr. Hill," not paying attention. Because it doesn't have that moment where he kind of does, like the double take. It doesn't feel like it's a comedy.
But then at the same time, he's also genuinely really quite an unnerving villain, I think. At times it plays, as the horror that it's trying to be with this guy. And certainly when there's a scene where he basically sexually assaults Barbara Crampton, who's down on this table, and it's really quite horrifying. Because he makes no secret of the fact that he's sexually attracted to her, and he wants to abuse a position of power to sleep with her, and he was trying it on with her earlier on in the film.
By this point he is just a head, and he's kind of talking like this because he's like blood is dribbling out of his mouth.
And they have to keep topping up the blood in his head because it's falling out the bottom, and obviously he needs to stay kept up with blood.
This is a pretty low budget thing. They threw it together, and I have seen this before, but it was a long enough time ago that I was kind of going into this pretty fresh, and I was surprised at just how good it is in terms of the practical effects. For one thing, we talked about how they actually frame things and make it look really good, but just the the gore elements, but also the it works really nicely. And the whole thing is just very well shot. It's you know what I mean. I was expecting something a little bit shitter. And kind of like with the Halloween sequels, like that was sort of level I was pitching at.
And to say it's a bunch of novices as well. I think that the cinematographer did bring a lot to it as well. By the sounds of it, the director was very much wanting to direct it as a stage play and film it like a stage play. And then the cinematographer would be like, you know what, I think might be more interesting if perhaps we go close on this and, do something a bit different. So I think he brought a lot to it by the sounds of it.
Yeah. Well, would you like to talk about the score?
Oh, yes, let's.
Because it's just the Psycho score, basically. Is that what they just put that on it?
It pretty much is, yeah. By the sounds of it, the director told the composer that he wanted a Bernard Herrmann-esque score, and he certainly did that. The thing that baffles me about it is, I was like, okay, well, I suppose this could perhaps slip through the cracks, and maybe some rights, were worked out so that this could exist. But then it's there in both the sequels, the same sort of music. So I'm like, oh, does this not count as plagiarism? Or are Bernard Herrmann's estate just very lax about this
Beyond
kind of
Re-Animator's music's quite different, I think. It's very...
It is, but they still have that dun, 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 dun in there at certain parts.
Yeah, Beyond sounds a lot more like a legally safe knockoff, whereas the first two are just very much the Psycho theme. If Alan's picking up on it sounding the same, it
exactly. Exactly, yeah. At the very beginning where we're introducing Herbert West, and he's in Germany, I think, with another Doctor who dies.
Switzerland?
And all this. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But the Doctor who he's working with there, who dies, as far as I could tell, was called Hans Gruber.
Yes!
That's just a weird little fact for you. Well, I'll give it a very solid 7. Which, now we've talked about it, I feel like giving it more. But I think that was my reaction to watching it. Because we've talked about it, and it was like, oh yeah, it did this. Yeah. But I'll stick with a good 7.
Sol, can you go next?
I'm going to give it a 9, which is quite a generous 9, really. But it's...
I think that reflects your personal taste, doesn't it? It reflects your personal enjoyment of it.
This was an 8 from me for a while, but this is a film I can go back to pretty much every year or couple of years, and every time it holds up, and I sort of get something else out of it and think... It's one of those films where every time I think, no, it can't be as good as I remember, and then I come away thinking like, no, that was really good. I really like that film.
Yep, I completely agree, and for those same reasons, it's a 9 from me as well.
Oh.
Yeah, really, really love this film.
And I think the ending's really good as well, which is kind of... It's got that nice tragic cap on it where, like a lot of these zombie films where it's like, oh, should you bring them back or not? And, his girlfriend dies.
Yeah.
Is he going to bring her back?
The main guy's girlfriend dies from being very lightly strangled. Like, I'd never thought that would have been...
Victim shaming over
cause of death. Well, and I think we're supposed to believe that Herbert West dies as well. Or we certainly don't see his ultimate fate. Because it goes full, body horror, someone's body opens up and, the intestines grabbing and is being dragged in. And then we never quite see him, finally dragged in or anything. I think Dr. Hill's head is certainly sort of crumpled to buggery, and we're supposed to think that he's not alive.
The dad character, who's been a kind of zombie henchman for much of this, is torn to pieces in silhouette, which is... very nice as well. But yeah, that leads us on to Bride of Re-Animator. They did make a sequel quite fairly soon after, really, 1989.
It was 5 years.
4 years. It says 1989 here on IMDb.
It says 1990 on the Wikipedia.
Right, well, I imagine that means it got a theatrical release in 1990, but it played at some film festivals. Well, IMDb says it played It played the Sitges, however you pronounce that, film festival in Spain. I'm sure you don't say Sitges. I'm sure it's a lot more Spanish. In October 1989. Every subsequent screening was 1990. It got a UK theatrical release in 1990. Eventually came out in America 1991, it looks like, yeah.
So, I'd never seen this film before. I only watched it for the purpose of this podcast. And how it begins really just threw me off, like, completely, like, where I thought it was gonna go. Like, we start... Well, first of all, we have Dr. Hill's severed head sort of going on about how he's going to get revenge on Jeffrey Combs' character. And then we're in, like, war-torn South America.
Very odd, yeah.
And...
Well, you say we're in war-torn South America. Yeah, we're in a small set, which is essentially a tent with a bed in it.
Yes.
They've really gone overboard on the budget.
Well, can I just say off the bat, you know how I said the first film was the first 3 chapters of the short story?
Uh-huh.
Right.
This is very much the next final 3 chapters, chapters 4, 5, 6.
Interesting.
Which I always found quite surprising when I was reading it, because I kind of just assumed this was, how can we meanderingly keep that story going? Let's kind of figure it out. But no, it is very much the second half of the bigger story as it was written. And I think it works a lot more as a coherent whole on the page. The film's maybe not quite so much. But if you think this was written in the 20s or whenever it was, the wartime setting kind of makes a bit more sense at the start.
Oh, that explains it. That's very... I haven't seen any behind the scenes stuff on this one, so I didn't realise that it was actually based on H.P. Lovecraft. For me, as a layman, I just assumed that this was just writers having to make it up as they went along. I thought Re-Animator ended at the end of the last film.
Well, that's how it plays, but no, I think it's just kind of a clumsy job of updating it to modernise it.
That's interesting because obviously this is essentially a take on Frankenstein, and that story is essentially the story of Victor Frankenstein creating this creature and his story, and then once the creature is alive, it becomes the creature's story and him becoming conscious, and then the conflict between the two of them. So it's kind of a 2-parter story to that as well. Perhaps not quite as neatly, but yeah, maybe that was a deliberate thing that Lovecraft did.
I think this film has great individual scenes. All the individual scenes I'm quite happy to sit and watch, and they're very enjoyable. I don't think any of them really add up to a coherent, proper plot. It just feels very meandering and lacking in structure. I think the first film has very good structure. That's kind of where I am with this. I can sit through it happily enough, but it really is lacking that spark.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's going on with Bruce Abbott in this one, because there's a new character in there. Barbara Crampton didn't come back, but instead there's Kathleen Kinmont, who you guys should recognise from Halloween 4, the patient at hospital. Do you remember? She eventually becomes the bride. But yeah, because he's got some kind of relationship going on with her. She's like terminally ill, and he's desperate.
I got the impression she's just a patient. There's nothing more than that. He's just, for some reason, he's become particularly obsessed with her health because she kind of reminds him of his dead girlfriend. Is that it?
Well, that was it. Yeah. That's what I could extrapolate. But there's some South American lady in this one as well, who's another love interest for Dan, and that was one too many.
Yeah, you're right. It's just kind of a bit messy, but the feel of it, the tone of it, is all still there, and it still works in a lot of respects. And Dr. West still does the same things.
The first film feels very self-contained to me, and after I saw it, I found it really odd that they made sequels. It struck me like it shouldn't have them, and I think considering that, the sequels to this film, to the first film, are a hell of a lot better than they really feel like they have any right to be. I've just realised we never mentioned the iconic glowing serum in the first film.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's worth mentioning. Like, again, it's just a really great image. It
works really well, and it's just, and they use it to quite good effect. They really let it glow in the dark, and I mean, is that just a luminous thing they're using? Is it genuine, or because it doesn't look like any After Effects or anything like that, does it?
I think it is just basically what you get inside a glow stick. But yeah, obviously that comes back in this and the next one. So yeah, I mean, one thing this film really gets into, and I was very pissed off with, honestly, when I first watched it, because this was an idea I'd been working on for ages and stuff I was writing, is he gets really into sewing body parts together and creating weird little animal things out of human body parts. And so you get, like a spidery thing that's a hand with an eyeball attached to it, and Dr. Hill gets bat wings attached to his head and create all these
yes, I did like that.
Yeah, it was a great idea, and it just annoyed me because I thought, oh, no one's done that, I can do that. My favourite part of the film is when there's a dog towards the end of the film, and then it reaches out with a human arm and grabs the guy, and he's like, oh, it's a dog with
hands. That is the best part of the film, and that's like those last 20 minutes are the only bit that I really engaged with. Like the rest of it was just such wasted opportunity. Yeah. Like they have this whole setup where they have this like spider hand thing, which is basically just an eyeball and a bunch of fingers, and this detective is at the doctor's home. And he's sort of, asking questions and stuff, and this hand's just sort of scurrying around in the background, and the detective can't see it, but the two guys can, and it never quite, got to the extent that it was like, a well thought out comedy skit. It was just, and sure enough, I was like, this is going to go somewhere, like it's going to get in the detective's hat, and he's going to put it on his head and walk out with it or something. But then instead, no, it just gets smushed, and that's it. And it should be pointed out that this is a different director now.
Yeah,
it's
Brian
not Stuart Gordon. Brian Usma,
who I believe Stuart Gordon's producing partner, certainly is
he
now.
produced the first film.
Yeah, stepping up to the director's chair. I do think the last 20 minutes, though, like you mentioned, do come together quite nicely, and there are some great images that, all these monstrosities that he's created from human body parts crawling around, and, two men's torsos sewn together and that sort of thing. It's got some really cool stuff going on, which, from what I remember, is actually in the book. Again, I kind of thought, oh, this is them just playing around, but it is in the original written thing, I think, that he gets bat wings attached to a head and stuff like that, if I remember correctly. So.
And then, of course, the pièce de résistance is the bride of Re-Animator. At the end, they create a woman, and out of different body parts, and it looks very cool. And the way they have her out on a slab for quite a long time in the film and adding bits, and it is very grotesque. But it looks like if you were going to stitch a load of body parts together. It's not, and it's not a simple sort of Frankenstein ripoff either, which it kind of could easily have been. They've gone full in.
Yeah, no, there's like exposed flesh, like skin isn't quite covering all the body. It's really grotesque. And there's my favourite shot in the whole thing is when I suppose it's Catherine Kinmont, the actress, and they've got this like strobe lighting going on, and she's just like gyrating and making these weird body contortions, and it's just this horrific but quite sort of beautiful imagery going on. Before we move on, can we talk about, like, again, this film ends with presumably Herbert West dying. He's he has a cave collapsing on him, sort of like a catacomb sort of thing. And Dr. Hill doesn't quite die, but sort of gets wedged between a couple of rocks, so he can't fly away. But
dang it, Bobby!
His end is much less final than in the previous film, and yet he doesn't come back in the next one. The actor died, I suppose, but yeah. But yeah, I just find it interesting that, again, they kill Herbert West off at the end.
Does he? I can't remember what happens. Does he?
He has bricks dropped on him.
There's a big cave in.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I ever really took it as him dying, but now that you say it back to me, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I guess that's probably how they
have that shot of his hand. Yeah. There's lifeless hands just there amongst the rubble, so I just assume...
This was the end of the franchise for 10 years until the third one came along a lot later, but... I don't know. I don't know if they made it intentional. It wouldn't surprise me if they intended it to be just, oh, it's part 2 of the story that we only told half of last time. This is the end. So,
so These guys live in Arkham, right?
Yes.
Is that a real place? Is Arkham a...
No,
I only know of Arkham from Batman.
Yeah, me too.
Batman, for whatever reason, lifted Arkham from the works of H.P. Lovecraft as a nod to it, and far surpassed it in popularity, to the point that now when you hear Arkham, you think of Arkham Asylum from Batman, but Arkham Asylum was an H.P. Lovecraft creation. Because H.P. Lovecraft, he did the whole shared universe thing with most of his writing, and it was largely all set in Arkham and Miskatonic University and all these locations, and dealt with these old gods, Cthulhu and mates, various old ones, and he was building this sort of lore of this universe slowly but surely. And he also made a big song and dance about inviting other people to join in and write their own stories set within his world and add to it. I think that's part of why it has become this sort of thing that people just borrow his characters and story ideas, and like the Necronomicon being an Evil Dead and that sort of thing, because it really was very much what he was trying to achieve with his writing in the first place, just kind of this, I don't know, cultural prominence. So yeah, I think Batman just did it as a nod to him, but it's not a real place. No.
Okay, cool.
Should we do ratings on that before we move on to the third?
Yeah, I go back and forth every time I watch Bride of Re-Animator, swapping it between a 6 and a 7, and on this viewing I have downgraded it to a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I think as we said, I liked aspects of this. It didn't quite work as a whole. I gave this a 6, which bear in mind I gave the first a 7. It's not a big step down, but yeah, I think it's definitely a lower and 6, I suppose.
I don't know if my viewing was hindered by the fact that I watched it almost back to back with the first film, but I was just bored for so much of this, and the last 20 minutes were pretty great, but the first hour and 10 of that is just a bit of a slog, really, just lots of back and forth and repetition. I'd give it a 5 out of 10.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's all pretty reasonable then. Yeah.
So they made another one.
Yeah, 10 years on nearly, or more than 10 years on. 2003. Beyond Re-Animator. Yeah, this one is weirdly a prison movie.
Yes.
I quite like that. I think it's a nice new, setting and flavour and premise.
No, I don't like prison movies.
Oh, really? See,
I don't. It's a setting that I've never gelled with. Like, if ever I see a movie, it's like something set in a prison, it's like,
that's weird.
I don't like it.
I quite like it.
It's a lore unto itself.
That's it. I quite like prison as a setting, and I've not seen that much stuff set in prison, honestly. But I like it when things go to prison. I'm on board.
Because you're trapped. You've got people trapped there. Yeah. You've got a very immediate power dynamic, but that doesn't necessarily stay true, because it's a sort of an authority power which can be overpowered physically, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting setup to have a prison, and you can put anything into it and kind of make it interesting.
It's just there are too many deplorable characters. That's what I don't like. Everyone has to have a terrible reason for being there. It's not like some,
Plus the guards are always arseholes as well. There's never a good guard.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be. You can get very, low minimum security prison stuff. You can have perfectly nice characters pretty believably in there.
I've not seen many minimum security prison films, though. I don't think they're quite the same stakes.
Well, like Orange is the New Black's the one that springs to mind for me. That most of the characters there are very sympathetic, because I think that is a minimum security prison. However many years have passed later.
30,
with the idea being that Herbert West's been in prison for 13 years, 10 years, however many years. We get a really I completely forgot about the cold open sequence at the beginning. It's fantastic. I really love it. I think it's great. No, not a fan.
No. I thought all the acting was terrible. I liked the zombie guy, the guy without half a jaw, but otherwise it was just, I mean, it was very much a slasher movie opening.
Well, this is it. It's played like a slasher thing, and I think the implication is you keep thinking, it's going to be, Herbert West's in there. I don't know. It's done as a slasher thing, and you don't quite know how that's going to fit the tone of this. And then they walk in, and there's this fantastic effect. It's very much, I think, an homage to Day of the Dead, the George Romero film. There's an iconic zombie at the beginning of that, which just has its lower jaw missing and the tongue hanging out, and he picks up a carton of milk, starts trying to drink it, and it goes everywhere, and it's darkly comic, I think, in a way that works. I think the effects are good. It's interesting.
The effect of him killing that girl isn't very good. He's supposed to be bashing her against the wall, but you can tell he's just very lightly tapping her.
Yeah. I don't know. I really like it. And then they cart Herbert West away in a prison car because he's there at the scene.
But crucially, he leaves behind a syringe of the green goo, which one of the boys picks up, and then the boy grows up and becomes the main character.
Yeah, so we jump forward, and this boy who saw his sister being murdered, and indirectly, Dr. West is responsible, but he doesn't want revenge, because at first when we see him coming in and he wants to work with Dr. West, you think, oh, he's going to get revenge somehow. But it's not that. He wants to work with him, and he wants to know how to stop death.
And he's been working on it for 13 years to get to this point, specifically being put in an assignment at that prison because he knows West's there. It's I think it's a decent setup for a film, even if it is somewhat like, oh, what, really, you've got to give West another very similar sidekick to the previous film. Okay.
Well, the other one just got too old, I suppose.
Yeah, they didn't think to get a good actor in exchange. They just went with the same old shit.
No one in this is good apart from Jeffrey Combs.
No one. Yeah, but no one jumps out from this film as like, oh my god, they're a terrible actor. But no one jumps out as they're a good actor either, do they? So,
I don't have a massive amount to say about this one really, other than I think this reduces Re-Animator to much kind of trashier zombie comedy fare. But I think within that ballpark, within that area, what it's playing in, I think it's actually a very good job of it.
Yeah, it still works.
I certainly think it's a much better film than the previous one, personally. I've always quite enjoyed this one. Yeah, it's not nearly as great a film as the original. I can't really defend it on a lot of levels, but I think it's, entertaining.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It feels like just a few of the supporting characters could have been, if they were stronger, it might have just made the whole thing a bit better. Like the warden, who is not really a supporting character, is a very major character, is very weak.
You really wanted like Ricardo Montalban or someone in that role.
Well, that's it. Didn't you think the guy who was playing him, it looked like if you morphed the Chuckle Brothers together. That's what he looked like and did a Mexican accent. Just things like that. So that guy, like a better actor, definitely, but that's not. That's a bit unfair on him because it's weakly written. His motivations and the way he does things are just quite weak. Just because he's just so I'm evil. It's like there's no real motive behind it. You've got a few other
warden.
Everyone will worship.
You're not the warden no more, I say. I am always the warden.
Yeah, and then there's a few other inmate characters. There's like one guy who's like after Herbert West, another one who's a bit kooky and then dies, and they bring him back to life. They're just not. Yeah, they're not strong enough. There's one who's the druggy one.
There's the mental one who dies early on and becomes
how you guys are describing it makes it sound like there's more than there actually is, because there really is only 3 guys. There's
but that's it, like
the rat guy,
the druggy one,
druggy guy, and the religious one.
The druggy one, he like turns inside out at the end in a pretty bizarre throwaway moment that doesn't really justify the amount of setup they do to get to it. But
exactly. But that's it, they just needed to commit to those characters a bit more, I think, or simplify it. There's a nurse there that never really adds anything. And so anyway, the main story is this woman who's a reporter, and for some reason she's knocking around the prison. Her and the doctor, who's on his first day, hit it off immediately and sort of become an item. But then it's all about her trying to find out the real information. He's working with Dr. West secretly, and they're kind of... then she gets involved, and then she has to be reanimated at one point, blah, blah, blah. But then the crux of this, and what they're trying to do that's new, is that they're not just reanimating people anymore because they come back as sort of crazed, animalistic freaks. Dr. West has now found some way to harness the kind of spirit of life in this sort of small little electrical tube thing.
For all intents and purposes, the soul, but he'll get angry and slap you if you refer to it as the soul.
Yeah, but in a sort of more scientific sense. But the actual essence of life, I suppose. And they throw enough little scientific jargon at it to go, okay, I'll go on board with this. And it's a nice, just update it so it's not just injecting people with stuff. And it means they kind of... They play with their identity a bit and their personality. Then again, they just needed to commit to it, I think, and make it have an effect. Because then a lot of the time when they're reanimating people, it's not consistent with what used to happen. They don't just go crazy anymore. They sort of act differently sometimes.
Yeah, that did bug me a couple of points where that happens. Yeah,
and there's a prison guard who just seems to become quite hypnotic and prone to suggestion. You know, it's just like, well, I suppose they did do that in the second one a lot, didn't they? But yeah, it's like, what happens with these guys? Anyway, it's all a bit inconsistent.
I like the personality blending sort of stuff that they do. Like because they take the essence of the warden, and I should not call it essence because that's dirty, isn't it? They take the soul part of the warden and use it to reanimate the reporter lady, and then Herbert West does the same thing for the warden, but uses like the essence of a rat. So that's why the warden goes all like ratty and
it goes a little...
I thought they played with it quite well, because for a while I thought they were trying to suggest that the reporter character, the girlfriend, was sort of like flitting between personalities, and she was committing nefarious acts as the warden, and then I thought it was basically two personalities in one body, but then the warden is still walking around and doing his own stuff. So
I think that's what they were saying at first, and then by the end it's more like she's become a blend of the two, and she's just kind of evil. Again, it didn't quite make sense, and it's just those little details. If they really concreted them down and worked out how this worked and what it was, rather than just going, oh, this is a nice new concept to sort of freshen it up. Done. Like, yeah, that's step one. Now work it out and make it a script. There was what I was impressed with was, although this film goes quite full on with the weirdness, and they're not shy about that, there's some real drama in this. There's some really tense moments and some quite nasty bits as well, particularly with the woman. She's being threatened by the warden all the time, like sexually threatened, and then there's a prison riot and they're gonna rape her and stuff. But it's not played for laughs, either, or obviously not played for laughs, but it's not played lightly. It kind of really hardens the tone of the film.
Yeah,
but in a good way. I think it works. And again, perhaps just a bit of a balancing of
it doesn't feel exploitative. I think that's kind of the point. It feels legitimately earned as part of the film. The one exception to that being the scene where the nurse character's got the tits out for no reason, and then the guy, like the zombie man, like bites her boobs off, and I was watching it thinking like, oh, I don't know about that. But then a few minutes later,
that was like watching something from the 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah. But then a few minutes later, there is a scene where a zombie like thing bites a man's dick off, and I thought, okay, well, at least it's like equal opportunities. That's all right.
But that bit, and then when the main woman, she becomes kind of quite malevolent and very domineering, and she beats up the doctor and everything. But she basically rips off her top, and she's wearing like a corset and stockings. It's like, well, okay. But so like that one that's a bit unnecessary. But the character element of it was fine.
Did you just hiccup, Calvin?
Why they? No, that was me. I didn't hiccup. I just accidentally knocked the chair and it squeaked.
Oh, okay.
So it was a bit like a Calvin. Oh.
Well, can we just talk about one more thing? Because as the credits roll, There is a fight between the rat and the warden's severed penis.
Yeah, it's bitten
and
off, as I mentioned, yeah.
That is not, like, I was ready to sort of, finish the, press, stop, but I was listening to the music, like, oh yeah, it's still very Bernard Herrmann-y and all that. And then we have this sort of, while the credits are rolling, this little square pops up, and the rat, it's like in shadow, and they have like a little boxing match.
It's the weirdest thing. It's
so
bizarre.
Weird.
I mean, maybe it's like a weird deleted scene that they felt just was too out of place in the body of the film, perhaps. But they invested too much, like, on the special effects to make it happen.
What special effects?
Well, because it's an animated, like, well, not animated. It's animated in the traditional sense of the word, like penis. It's like a puppet thing or
traditional penis.
No, what I mean,
so sausage on a stick.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it's not
effects.
A hand drawn.
It's, €5?
It's like a little animatronic cock chasing after this rat down an air vent.
Animatronic
and weird, like, slow motion being employed every time they need the rat to do some acting. And then it cuts to silhouette for like a really weird puppet show that's very blatantly being done with shadow puppets all of a sudden, and a dildo on a stick. And yeah, it's bizarre. I don't know what the hell they were thinking, other than
neither do I.
It's a comedy. We've got to put some jokes in there. I don't know. Yeah, should we rate it?
Yeah, I didn't like this one very much at all. I think just the overall cheapness. There's something, and I know that the other two are quite low-budget films, but there's just something about the era in which it's made. I'm not sure if it's the film stock or the transfer, like what it was, but it just feels the lighting was flat. It wasn't shot as attractively.
Yeah, this one's shot digitally, isn't it? Whereas the others aren't.
That explains it.
There's something to be said for, I don't know, the same exact cheap filmmaking techniques just being done nowadays just don't look as nice, because I don't know.
It's so weird, isn't it? Yeah.
And this is 2003. Like now, they handle digital much better these days because they're used to it, and you can grade it in a different way. But
yeah, high-end digital. But I mean, this is the thing: when you go down to that gritty, low-level way of making films at the bottom end of the barrel, it just doesn't kind of work. And a great example is last week, I believe, if I've remembered our release schedule properly, we were talking about Suspiria and how Dario Argento then went on to make Mother of Tears. It's the exact same thing. Compare those two films from the same director. One of them's horribly cheap. One of them's got this kind of beautiful, poetic, visual look to it. And, you know, George Romero, the exact same thing. You look at his later films compared to his original films. Any of the kind of masters of horror that carried on working into the digital age.
Yeah, but again, you're talking about early 2000s.
No, not really. You know, Survival of the Dead was like, what, 2009? I'm not saying you obviously you can do amazing stuff with digital cinematography, but I think it's difficult to do it at the low end, whereas I think you can do some really nice stuff with more traditional cinematography.
There's something about film stock, like, or I don't know if how the imagery is captured, or if it is lighting, or what. But yeah, this just felt cheap. I didn't laugh that much. I didn't think the creations were as exciting or fun as the previous films. So this one gets a 4 from me.
This one is generally regarded as the weakest one. As I said earlier, personally, I think it's a step up from the previous one. This is my favourite of the sequels. I give it a 7.
I think I prefer it to the second one as well. And kind of opposite to you, Calvin, I like stuff that's set in prisons because, for the same reasons, you know, it traps things. I don't think it's handled particularly well, but I like some of the stuff. I like elements of it. I like they're doing something slightly different.
I think it's more coherent than the second one. I think the second one's just a bit more meandering and all over the place.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, I gave it a 6.
Okay.
Fair enough. So, before we move on to our own ideas for a fourth one and what they may have done themselves had they been able to get the money together, I've done a little Halloween game for us.
Oh!
This is a nice, simple one, this game, which is basically I've got a load of Halloween movie themes for whatever reason, or not Halloween, horror movie themes. for whatever reason, the horror genre seems to attract theme tunes from singers and musical artists and what have you more than most other genres do. So it's very simple. I want you to tell me what film these songs are from, and also if you can name the artist, I'll chuck you an extra point for that as well. But I do think Calvin's probably going to win.
Yeah,
So. Yeah.
I'm going to be much use at this.
So.
And a very mid to late 90s, and it seems very self-aware as well, so I would say post-Scream.
Is it one of the Return of the Living Dead movies?
No, I think this is a lot less self-aware than
I would say
think.
Late 80s.
Yeah, I think, off the top of my head, I think it's from 1989.
Really?
But that might be
That
slightly
sounded
wrong.
like it was off the Clueless soundtrack or something. It was very mid-90s.
Horror was ahead of its time, I suppose.
I think this is one of the first songs that ushered in this wave of horror movie themes that sounded like that. Did you not hear
something
the chorus?
about
I don't want to be buried
cemetery.
in someone's cemetery. What was it? What was the word I'm missing there?
Pet?
Oh, Pet Sematary.
Oh, Pet Sematary.
I haven't seen that film.
I mean, I heard Alan say that slightly sooner,
Yeah,
but I
that's
don't know
fair.
if I
I
can give
haven't
either of
seen
you
it.
a point there. I don't know.
Yeah, I earned that point.
Oh, go on then. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Pet Sematary by the Ramones for the theme for the film Pet Sematary. Stephen King's in the music video.
Is he?
It might just be the shot of him from the film, but that's actually Pet Sematary is actually very similar to Re-Animator. Thinking about it, it's very much a zombie film, but it's each.
They're doing a
person
remake of that.
It's out in April, so we'll probably cover the original, which I'm looking forward to. But moving on.
Oh, Addams Family.
Addams Family. Addams Family.
Addams Family.
I'm sorry.
Did you fall over?
Sorry.
What happened?
I got so excited I knocked my phone off. And dropped it on the floor. Sorry about that.
Have I mentioned that you need to be specific with
the second Addams Family values.
Addams Family.
Yeah,
I'll go the first one then. I guess I don't really know.
It is from Addams Family Values. This is Addams Family Whoomp in brackets by Tag Team.
Something like a recipe. Bits and pieces of my creation. Isn't real. It's my
Bowie.
creation.
David Bowie. Someone ripping off David Bowie.
I do not know. From my heart and from my hand, why don't people understand my intent?
Weird Science. Yes, I know it is. It's Danny Elfman.
Yes,
Danny Elfman's, what are they called? Oingo
Boingo. Yeah, it is Weird Science, which isn't so much horror, but it's certainly, The Simpsons might parody it on a Halloween episode. That's kind of what we're looking at here. Again, kind of similar to Re-Animator, thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'll give you a point for the artist there, actually, Alan, for getting Danny Elfman.
Oh.
Now, Calvin.
Yes.
Come on, no, don't worry, Calvin. You're gonna pull this back, I think.
Okay.
When I close my eyes, I realize you're coming my way. I'm standing in the night alone forever.
Oh, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. I knew it was building up to that. I was just like, I didn't want to... Yeah. Warriors. I love that song, by the way. It's great. When was Dream Warriors? Was that 87, 88? 86? Anyway, I don't know who sings it.
Yes, that of course was Nightmare on Elm Street 3, was it?
Yes.
Dream Warriors? Yes. Well done. A lot of these are slasher movie themes. It seems to be particularly something they were fond of. So, yeah, you're poised to do well.
Who was that then?
That was by Dokken or something.
Oh.
I think they were called Dokken.
Oh.
I don't know. Never heard of them, but fingers on buzzers. Calvin? Alan?
Honey, I'm gonna make it out alive. This is Snakes on a Plane, and it is... Oh, what are they called? Something Starship.
The clue is in the name.
Cobra Starship.
Yes!
Yeah. I believe the full title is Bring It, bracket Snakes on a Plane, or the other way around. I love this song.
I don't think I've ever heard it.
I love that song.
It is. It's a great song. The music video inexplicably plays over the end credits, complete with Samuel L. Jackson doing his little cameo.
Yeah.
Love it, but not as much as I love this.
Oh, it's Electric Six.
Check it, yo, it's this chick, right? Serlena, making me sick, right? Earth is worthless to her, she be tripping like threatening me and my men's trying to get the light, thinking she's Superwoman, but black kryptonite, finishing whatever you start, son. The best looking crime fighter since myself in part 1. Better act right and play nice and sing along, cause K is back any height.
Men in Black 2! Will Smith!
Well, that's not a horror film.
Wanna brawl with me, trying to brawl with me.
I mean, as I said before, when Weird Science came up, the only criteria here really is that The Simpsons might parody it for Halloween.
I was trying to think, this is obviously a Will Smith knockoff. What is this? Oh no, it is Will Smith.
I love that song. I genuinely love it. It's fantastic. Right. Come on, Calvin. He's actually pulled ahead of you
Oh,
here.
for God's
but I think
sake.
you're going to pull it back. I think you're going to pull it back.
Okay.
You certainly ought to. Right.
This is very 80s.
It is, isn't it?
You're with your baby, and you're parked alone on a summer night. You're deep in love, but you're deeper in the woods. You think you're doing alright.
Is it Friday the 13th Part 6?
Yes!
Yes!
Well done.
Brilliant.
Do you know the artist?
No, I don't.
Alan, you might guess the artist.
What? Alice Cooper! Oh my god, it's Alice Cooper! It is, isn't it?
It is Alice Cooper, yes.
Yes!
That was... He's back, brackets, the man behind the mask.
Yeah.
By Alice Cooper for Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives.
Yeah.
Very nicely done there.
Thank you. That's the best of the sequel. Well, that's the best film, actually, in the whole...
Really?
I think so. It's the one where they actually go full, like, tongue-in-cheek. It's like, it has Jason Voorhees doing the James Bond gun barrel sequence towards the beginning of the film, throwing his machete down a camera lens, so it's... Yeah.
Oh man, I want to do these films.
That's the only good one.
It's got Alice Cooper doing the theme as well.
But Alice Cooper's also in Nightmare on Elm Street. He's Freddy Krueger's dad in Freddy's Dead Final Nightmare. Yeah.
For fuck's sake.
I've been waiting for you.
Electric Six.
Is this from a movie? No, it was just Electric Six.
I did cheat a little bit to get this one in. It's actually from a web series, which is the level at which these guys are playing. I mean, it's technically not Electric Six, but I will allow it. It's Dick Valentine, lead singer.
The bloke out of Electric Six. Yeah.
Solo. For the web series Bite Man, which was Machinima's effort to get into original content programming with a zombie comedy series. It's not very good at all. I think Phil Lamar was in it, if I remember correctly. It's made with proper people and stuff. Yeah. Anyway. Right, see if you know this.
We're going head to head with the undead. You can feel them full of lead, but they won't stay dead. We're going head to head, cause we really need the bread. Now everybody's fled, cause they won't stay dead. They're knocking down old London town.
Is it Chaz and Dave?
Yes.
Disappearing overnight, what's been there for years. Money to be made, it's big, just be careful where
The hell would they have been signed up to do it? Is this an official song from a film?
Yes. Head to head, brackets with the undead. It's actually by Rockney versus Zombies featuring Chaz and Dave, but I will accept Chaz and Dave.
Well, I want to say Shaun of the Dead, but because there's got to be something postmodern.
It was riding the coattails of Shaun of the Dead. Bit late.
One of those things with James Corden in it.
No, but you're not far wrong.
Cockneys versus Zombies.
It is Cockneys versus Zombies.
Yes.
Oh, well, that makes sense. I didn't know that was a thing, but that would make
Did you
perfect
not?
sense. Yeah.
I have seen this film. It's not very good.
It's got what's he called in it?
Honor Blackman.
The Uber Cockney. The
Rent
leader of the
a Cockney.
Cockneys. He's like the main guy in it, pretty much.
Cool.
Alan Ford? No, that's not. No, what's he called?
Oh, I know what you mean.
Like
Is it Alan Ford? Yeah.
Rent a Cockney or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not great. Although, there's worse out there. Could do a lot worse. Right. This one is a great theme. Let's have it.
People say I'm crazy and I make no sense, but they don't understand a man's got influence. He's a gigolo, a liar, a man of many faces. So don't be fooled by what you think you see. He's gonna make his move on you and me. Fright night, who's it gonna be tonight? Lock your doors and windows wide. Soon we'll all believe I'm right. We're all in for almost Friday night.
It's very difficult to make out like distinct
I
lyrics.
was going to say, if you could have heard the
It's-
chorus, you
yeah.
would definitely have known that because it was the name of the film.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Can you give us a sort of sample of lyrics? Just so
Yeah.
we can.
They start by just saying the name of the film over and over and over, about
Okay.
5 or 6 or 7 or 8 times. People say I'm crazy and I make no sense, but they don't understand. The man's got influence. He's a gigolo, a liar, a man of many faces. So don't be fooled by what you think you see. He's gonna make his move on you and me.
It's not American Psycho, is it?
Fright Night.
No.
Who's
Ghost
it gonna be
Gigolo.
tonight?
Fright Night.
Lock your-
Fright
yeah,
Night.
it is Fright Night. Yeah.
What
Fright Night.
What happens in Fright Night?
Never seen it.
Chris Sarandon plays a modern
gigolo?
Dracula character who moves in next door and is very seductive and it's a good film, Fright Night. Haven't you guys
I don't think I've
seen
seen
it?
it,
No?
yeah.
It's one of the best vampire films ever made, honestly. And not a particularly high bar, but it's good fun. Right, come on, Calvin. It's another one for you.
What did they say?
Something about putting a spell on you?
Would it help if I told you they were shouting the words Hellraiser?
Hellraiser.
Oh. I've never seen Hellraiser.
I mean, it's not Hellraiser.
Hellraiser 2.
It's not Hellraiser 2. It is Hellraiser 3. Well done, Calvin. Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. You could take a good stab at the band there, because he's got a very distinctive voice, and he's quite well known.
Rob Zombie.
No, I mean, that's a good guess, but no. No, it's Motorhead. That's actually a cover of an Ozzy Osbourne song, but Motorhead covered Hellraiser by Ozzy Osbourne for Hellraiser 3.
Interesting.
Now, Alan,
yes,
this one's for you.
Okay.
Or rather, your brother.
Is it PJ Harvey?
Yes. I mean, you're not going to get it. It's like an incredibly obscure film, but PJ Harvey did a film. I think Brendan Fraser might have been in it.
Is it called Furry Revenge?
The song's called Who Will Love Me. No, the film's called The Passion of Darkly Noon.
I like that one of the things you know about my brother is that he likes PJ Harvey. Like, that's filtered through somehow.
Oh, this is Deep Blue Sea! And it's LL Cool J. I remember bringing that song up in that podcast, and you guys were both like, "Well, what? What song?"
I didn't pick up on the ridiculousness of it when I was watching the film.
Yeah, Calvin, you did tip me off to this in our Deep Blue Sea episode. It is something to behold.
For human flesh to rip my teeth through. Other fish in the sea, but barracudas ain't equal to a half-human predator created by a needle.
It's great.
Fuck with me. Don't you fuck with me. Don't you fuck
Paulo Gray.
with me. I am bound for bloody.
You know what you said earlier about it being a David Bowie ripoff? It's probably closest of this guy.
That sounds like a takeoff of Silence of the Lambs. Whereas, would you fuck me? I'd fuck me.
I think the lyrics are just "Don't you fuck with me" over and over.
I thought it was "Won't you fuck with me." It's much more hopeful.
Well, I'm going to tell you the name of the song is "Why Was I Born?" brackets, and then the brackets give it away. Why Was I Born? Brackets. Freddy's Dead. From Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. And it was by Iggy Pop. Sweating lunatic Iggy Pop.
Yeah, that's the one that has Alice Cooper in the film. Like, he actually plays Freddy Krueger's dad.
God.
It's a cameo.
Right. This one's a bit of a cheat. It's not from a film. It's a tie-in with something else.
This is the Keeper, for I have a tasty treat, inviting you all to a feast. Only the best of fiends can come. We'll have skeletons of fun. So come on down to the Keeper's Zoo.
Oh,
I'm sure
it's
it will get
definitely a
rave
spin-off from
reviews.
Leprechaun.
Be on time if you can, because this is the
Oh, no, it's
Crypt
not.
Jam.
The Crypt Jam.
Oh, is it Tales of the Crypt?
Yes.
Well, at first I thought it was Leprechaun, because I heard some bit of Irish in there.
And who do you think that was by?
Oh, I have no idea.
The Crypt Keeper, of course.
Oh, what? Oh.
Right. This one. You might get this one, Calvin. I don't think I will.
Mr. Nice Guy. No more.
not another of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, is it?
No. You are close.
I know that song.
Friday the 13th.
I know the song, but I don't know what from.
No, it's a cover of No More Than Mr. Nice Guy by Megadeth, which they recorded for Shocker, which was a Wes Craven film. It's the one where the criminal's body parts make the guy come back and try and kill someone, right? Like The Simpsons. Right, 3 more to go. You should be able to get these. They're quite straightforward. This next one's probably the hardest of the remainers.
Remainers?
Every day I wake up to another day gone by. Nothing but the open road and the never-ending why. Anything can happen, yeah, but nothing ever does. I try to change, it's kind of strange, same as it ever was. Now look at us, how do I deal with you? How do I deal with
Buffy?
me?
Is it Scream?
Oh, I know what you did last summer.
Oh,
I know what you did again last summer.
I still know what you did last summer.
I'm going to give that
Scream
to you,
2.
Alan. It is from I Still Know What You Did Last Summer.
I knew it'd be from one of those teeny 90s slashers. Yeah.
Now, bearing in mind it's a very generic woman singing it, and it's the sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer, or whatever the hell it's called. Any idea?
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
No.
Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Yes, it was Jennifer Love Hewitt singing How Do I Deal?
Oh, gosh.
Clearly a contractual obligation on the part of the producers.
I'll only come back if I can sing the theme song. Oh, all right, Jennifer.
Right. Here we go.
To face the demons I'm bonded to, cause they're chasing me, but I'm part of you, so escaping me is impossible. I latch
Eminem.
onto you like a
Venom.
life in your childhood too, cause if I'm the music that y'all grew up on, I'm responsible for you that arson fools. I'm the super villain, dad and mom is losing their marbles too.
I mean, you are correct, it's Venom. Eminem.
So call me Venom. I got that adrenaline, not knowing when I'm never gonna slow up and I'm ready to snap any momentum. Thinking it's time to go get 'em. They ain't gonna know what hit 'em. When they get beat with the venom. I got that adrenaline, not knowing when I'm never gonna slow up and I'm ready to snap any momentum. Thinking it's time to go get 'em. They ain't gonna know what hit 'em.
Utterly baffling. Anyway, final one now.
Ghostbusters.
Oh, damn it!
Well, it's
Something's wrong.
But it's the new one, isn't it?
some sort of takeoff of Ghostbusters.
All alone in the crib, watching the tube. Yo, is that what I did? Did I see something move? Chills on your spine, your heart fills with fright. Not filled by the things that go bump in the night. And walk through the wall.
Things that go bump in the
No time
night.
to stall. You call the Ghostbusters. That's who you call Ghostbusters.
Is it Ghostbusters 2?
Yeah, it's Ghostbusters 2. I'm amazed it took you that long to guess that one. Any
I
idea who that
thought-
was by?
I assumed I would know. No. What was the guy who did the first Ghostbusters?
Seal, wasn't it?
Ray
Seal?
Parker Jr.
Was it not?
No.
I think
it was Ray
Seal might
Parker
have
Jr.,
done the Batman and Robin
Seal did Kiss from a Rose.
soundtrack or
That was
something.
from Batman.
Yeah. Yeah, Ray Parker Jr.
So is it Ray Parker Senior?
No, it's Ghostbusters by Run DMC.
Oh, really?
Parker
dear.
Senior.
Anyway,
that was a
Calvin,
big
you
guess.
won that with 14 points. Alan only got 10.
Hooray!
So well
I think I
done.
did
You're the
alright
true
there,
king
considering.
of the horror.
I thought you did very good, Alan. I was afraid I might not win.
Yeah. Anyway.
And winning is everything.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Do you guys know what the fourth Re-Animator film that very nearly went into production was all about?
Re-Animator in space.
No, it was... They were talking about doing it almost immediately, trying to get it together. William H. Macy was cast in the film. I'm pretty sure he was like on board to do it. It was called House of Re-Animator, which is a clue. It was going to see Herbert West becoming a member of the White House, becoming part of the...
Was like Secretary for Health or whatever.
Something like that, yeah. But the plot was going to involve the president being killed and him stepping in to revive him because he's knocking around. The president being played by William H. Macy.
What sort of time period are we talking about? When was this happening?
2004. It was straight up a response to the Bush administration. And the reason it never happened is basically that it took them too long to get funding. And by about 2006, 2007, they were like, a year or two later, they were like, yeah, if we make it now, it won't be out. Like, whilst Bush is still in the White House, it won't make any sense. And never mind. Which is why I think it's now time to revive this idea with our current White House administration. I think
put Herbert West in the White House.
I think it would work well in the current climate. So that's my pitch.
He's a white man in
his
60s. It would make sense.
Yeah, he's a very morally dubious, ethically dubious person, so he would fit in. He's a sociopath, so that would work as well.
He's got a record of criminal transgressions.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't think of a better sequel pitch than just let's dust that off now that Trump's in.
Yeah, I quite agree. But I mean, would he have had an assistant? Would he have had another sort of bland leading man?
I don't really know. I think they were probably aiming for the William H. Macy double act, but I don't know if he was going to die very soon and become a kind of mindless simpleton trying to kill people. I don't know. I have no idea. I know this got so far as like there was a horrifically horrible, cheap-looking poster that got produced to when they take films to like press events and film festivals and things to try and gather funding for them.
Right, yeah.
It was one of those very early give us some money posters, but it got that far along. I think it's a real shame it never happened. I think if this had fallen into let's just pump out silly sequels and new settings and with new injections of angles on it, it could have worked quite nicely.
Yeah.
You're saying we need to reanimate the franchise.
Yes. Exactly that.
So, is Alec Baldwin available?
Well, we need some young people in our pitch. If it's just, or maybe we don't actually. Maybe we none of us liked the love interest stories, unless we can do something interesting with it and twist it. Yeah. But I think there has to be some likability because, especially in a Trump-style White House, put Herbert West in there. It's a hotbed of terrible people, really.
Yeah, I mean, she, like the wife of the president, seems like someone you could get a lot of sympathy for, perhaps, potentially. I don't know. Although maybe not. You could have a young reporter trying to get in there again, but then that's just the third one again. What about a White House staff member who's just kind of non-partisan? They've got those people who work there that don't, that just stay with the building. And...
They're sort of like civil servants, aren't they?
Yeah.
What we have here, yeah.
Yeah, and who are we going for as the president? Because, I mean, William H. Macy might have played as a bumbling buffoon George Bush president. He doesn't play as an evil twat president, which is kind of how you'd have to do it now. So, I mean, you could get a Baldwin in. It's almost a bit too obvious. I don't know.
Thomas F. Wilson?
Oh my God! Yeah!
Could probably afford him as well.
I was going to say, that's perfect. It's actually perfect. Although I know he doesn't like talking about the Biff comparisons to Trump, apparently. He's not a big fan of talking about that.
Oh no, he's a Republican.
I don't think so. I think it comes across like he feels guilty for getting normalizing the idea of President Trump or something.
That's funny. Oh, poor guy.
Clancy Brown.
Is he alive?
Clancy Brown. Actually, no. He played a zombie in Pet Sematary too. Actually, that's too close to the bone, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's right. So
Right, let's just convince Thomas F. Wilson then.
What is Dr. West's motivation in this film? What's his job, first of all, and what's he trying to do? But if we're gonna pull this forward another 15 years, wouldn't it be good if we're at a point where he has kind of cracked it, he's solved it, and now the big problem for the world is population crisis, or if he has solved death now. It's still only available to the very rich, and so you've got rich old white men are suddenly becoming extremely populous, whereas younger people, the young and poor, are dying off. So it's just yet another example of the healthcare system at work.
Do you want to know the tagline they had for this film on this dreadful poster with a photoshopped William H. Macy as a zombie?
What was it?
Nomination. Inauguration, reanimation.
Oh.
There's another one. Of the dead, by the dead, and for the dead.
That's pretty good, actually. I quite like that one.
Summer 2007, it says at the bottom. So, well, there's another idea here that apparently was also being thrown around, but didn't happen. They were going to do an Island of Dr. Moreau thing with her.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Island of Re-Animator, but that never went anywhere. So that would have been really cool as well, actually. But
there's so many things that you could do with it.
So if you got they kind of flirt with this idea in the films, but using reanimation goop as a recreational drug. So what if Herbert West sort of breaks bad and starts selling the green stuff to fund his research? God. And then you could do Re-Animator in the hood, because he's like, you have to go to the hood to
that was
to
a big dollar back in the early
years.
I mean, initially I thought that's just a quick gag, silly idea, but no, that could actually be really cool. The idea of doing a kind of, like you say, dealing with drug deals and all that kind of stuff, but the zombies.
And then you can do all sorts of metaphors for like drug use and zombies, like who's on the drugs and who's a zombie, man.
I think it'd be good because he'd probably really hate it as well, like having to do that side of things.
Yeah, he would.
I mean, obviously
and
he'd
to
be using the money
associate
to
with those
fund
sorts
his
of
own.
people.
Yeah, I think so.
And he'd always be itching to make the deals go wrong, so he has some bodies to play with.
Yeah. And you could give him like an Aaron Paul kind of sidekick to be the comic relief.
A sidekick that wouldn't be just annoying and bland. That would work really well, yeah.
But if you can't die of an overdose from it, can you? Because it just keeps you alive.
Maybe if you take too much, you just go full zombie, and you can even infect other people for a bit because you're passing some of the remnants of the fluid into them.
Sexually transmitted zombification.
Yeah, depending on how much of it you've got in your system. Absolutely,
sexually transmitted zombies, is that? Yeah.
Oh, it's been done. I mean, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I don't think I've ever seen it done, but it has.
I do think that this does lend itself quite nicely to a sitcom.
TV's the big deal these days, so this would actually work itself. This would, in a post-Ash versus Evil Dead world, in a world where they're making a Chucky TV series at the minute, continuing the story.
Well, and you'll remember that was the original pitch, that it would be a TV series, so bringing it back to,
Could he be in Las Vegas and he works for a magician coming up with new tricks, and all the tricks are basically this animal looks like it's being killed and then it comes back to life? Wow, how do you do it, West? Tricks of the trade.
I think, Dr. Hill's head's still out there somewhere, so you could probably do something with that. Take that on, because they found his head at the in Bride of Re-Animator. They drop a line that it was being used in like a sideshow as an attraction.
Yeah. That would work. If this was a TV series, that would be a really good, that mid-season lull when people are losing interest, then you end episode 6 with the carnival sideshow, and the camera slowly zooms in and his head's there, and you think, oh shit, he's coming.
What about Apocalypse Now Re-Animator, where someone has to go and sort of travel to find Dr. West, but he's actually gone mad and he's sort of living in this cult of people that he's reanimated. And he's really fat and hasn't learned.
I mean, that's very similar to Island of Dr. Moreau Re-Animator as well.
I know, that's what I'm trying to think. What about Godfather Re-Animator?
What about Western Re-Animator? And he lives on a ranch out in the middle of nowhere now, but it's like No Country for Old Men style Re-Animator. He's coming to terms with it. Unforgiven Re-Animator. He's coming to
James
terms
Bond
with the fact that
Re-Animator.
he's aging. He's an old man. He's got like zombies on the ranch.
To play with ideas of mortality, maybe he's dealing with his own death. Maybe he finds out he's got a disease or something.
That'd be interesting.
And as an older person, that would work. And then it's like a moral decision of, do I want to keep myself alive? Is this really life? And all that. Or can he get his sort of essence into a young, fresh body or something like that? His essence into a young body.
How would he get it in there? Would he inject it in?
We've come up with about 17 ideas there.
Surprising amount of life in this, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just because that character, will just transfer anywhere. It'd be good.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys think they'll ever do anything else with it? I think too much time's passed, and it's kind of. I could see like a reboot or something happening, just a flat out new take on it.
It is just high profile enough to get a complete, like a kind of Danny McBride reboot.
I think even that's a bit too. I could certainly see like a TV remake kind of thing, like a Bates Motel style take on it, because there you kind of got your chance at a fresh new audience, but it's not tied to the original. I could definitely see that happening, but I don't think there'll ever be anything in the same continuity. I don't think there'll be another movie.
If you were just going to try and remake it and do the same story again, I can't see what you would do that would overawe it. It would just
but I'd say that about 90% of these movies to TV show adaptations that have happened, and a lot of them have been very good. I would have said that about Bates Motel.
But at least that's long form enough that it's taking it off in different areas. I'm talking about if you just remade a film. But
I mean, Bates Motel was essentially pitched as, we're doing Psycho, remaking the film as a TV series. So obviously, if you did it, you'd add in all new plot strands and side characters and some ideas there.
Yeah, plenty of ideas.
Happy Halloween, listener! That was our Halloween special for the year, where we did the Re-Animator trilogy. That means that October is now done, which means that we're moving on from horror movie fare, and now we're going to give you 8 weeks of Christmas films. Yay! No, not really, but we are doing a Christmas film next week. Huzzah! Just another reminder that there is a bonus mini episode of the podcast available on our website and our SoundCloud, where Alan and myself review the film Venom with our mystery guest, who is also the guest who will be appearing on next week's episode. Do go and check that out, dimreturns.com, and please do go and rate and review us on iTunes. Just a reminder that we are now accepting requests for future episode topics via the medium of iTunes reviews. And as ever, go and find us on Facebook, Twitter, and all that stuff. Spread the word, and have a very pleasant Halloween. And to all, a good night.
Where's my rap? You said you'd write me a rap.
We're working on it. We just need a rhyme for, and I'm here to say.
Melly Mel, and I'm here to say I was born on the 15th day of May. And I'm Mr. Ness, and I love myself, and my date of birth is November the 12th.
I know, I'll do a rap. Boom, 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 boom. I'm Mr. Plow, and I'm here to say I'm the plowingest guy in the USA. I got a big plow, and I'll move a lot of things, like your cow if you have one.
Well, my name's Michael Scon, and I'm here to say I'm about to do the Scon in a major way. You jump to the right and you shake a hand, and you jump to the left and you shake that hand. You meet new friends, you tie some yarn, and that's how you do the Scon.
Will, with will, with will, with will.
Well, I'm the big kipper and I'm here to say that I'm the biggest rapper in the USA. Yeah, my name's Ryan with my DC crew, going on record with a rap for you.
Well, I'm a peanut bar, and I'm here to say your checks will arrive on another day. Another day, another dime, another rhyme, another dollar. Another stuffed shirt with another white collar. Criminals, Wall Street, taking the pie, and all the black man gets is a plate of white lies. Prisons recruiting them, police bees shooting them, rap artists looting them, labels all diluting them. Barack Obama is scared of me, cause I don't swallow knowledge and I spit it for free. Let me clear my throat. Ha ha ha. I don't know what that was, I don't know what that was.